Joined now by Ross Bjork, Ohio State Athletic Director on Kings of the North. Ross, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Doug. I appreciate it. Kings of the North. I'm trying to follow all the Ohio State podcasts, so I've got you guys.
We're bigger. We're even beyond.
Dialed in, so I
We're
know
even
you
beyond.
are. I know. So
28 northern
having me on.
teams. It's great to have you here because you have some great perspective. I don't know that well, I'm not going to back into it. We're drawing a line.
Go right in.
We're drawing a line. We think that a lot of college football is breaking north versus south, right? Just sort of with the way now, of course, USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten, and who knows? But I think there's a little bit of a divide there. It's not completely clean, but anyway, you were in the SEC for a long time. You're now in the Big Ten. What's better, the SEC or the Big Ten? If you want to answer that, you're more than welcome to answer it.
I do get paid by Ohio State. Ohio State is a proud member of the Big Ten for a long, long time. So, of course, but I'm only 23 days into the job, the official job. I've had the overlap with Gene. Look, there's a lot of similarities in terms of how we think. Both conferences are leading the way, if you will, in this modern era. Maybe different styles. Maybe obviously the geography. The SEC prided itself on having the regional geography, even with expansion over the years. Maybe Missouri's an outlier, if you will, geography-wise. And so obviously the Big Ten's different from that perspective. So I'm getting my feet wet in terms of what's the room like among ADs, what's it like to interact with the presidents, the faculty reps in the Big Ten have a bigger voice, if you will, through the Joint Advisory Group, which is a structure that's been around since the beginning of the Big Ten. So there's different nuances. The fundamentals of what we do, though, are the same. TV rights, scheduling. It's so funny walking into my first Big Ten meeting. I'm like, oh, we had these same conversations in the SEC. So that part of it is not really different. It's people, it's styles, it's maybe television partners are all new for me. Like I had CBS and ESPN in the SEC, but now it's NBC and Fox, and I didn't really know those folks. So getting to know, so things like that are different, and I'm learning.
Is the SEC, I guess when it comes to football, is the SEC more aggressive at all in pushing its agenda, in maybe beating its chest about what it does well on the football field? Is that a fair characterization or no?
I don't think so. No, now that I've seen it on this side of it in the Big Ten, I don't think so. I think both leagues, as far as football, are aggressive where we need to be. I don't think there's a difference from that perspective. Clearly, look, the SEC has had a track record, right, in the CFP era and all those kind of things. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves from that standpoint. And so they've got the track record. But I think as far as what both conferences do to promote themselves around the game of football, to have a platform, to have a stage, like Big Ten Media Days, SEC Media Days, I think both conferences really do beat their chest the right way for the sport of football. And we should. It's the economic driver of our conferences.
Absolutely.
Right? It drives the viewership. It drives the TV value. So we should be promoting football, but I don't see any difference between both leagues from that standpoint.
You talked about the SEC was proud that it sort of, even as it expanded, it kept sort of its heartbeat, right? It was a Southern heartbeat and was contiguous in most ways. And I think there's a clear, there's an SEC football culture. Is there not?
There is. Yeah,
I think we all know that, right?
Is. It's there's no weddings, during football season, right? In the South, I mean, that's sort of a built-in sort of. But I've heard that around Ohio State.
There is. Nobody in Ohio gets married in the fall.
Yeah, I think the culture of Ohio State football, maybe not all the way across the Big Ten, has the same elements as SEC football, where it is a religion.
Yep.
You wake up on Sunday morning and you feel different depending on how the outcome went on Saturday. Right? If you won that game, man, you're proud walking into church. You're proud going to work on Monday morning, right? That's Ohio State. That's the SEC culture. So those things are, it's fascinating when you compare and contrast, those kind of differences and similarities.
Do you think it is any more difficult for a Big Ten culture to develop in a conference-wide manner when you are going from the Pacific to Piscataway, which we have trademarked that, by the way. Pacific, isn't that good? Pacific to Piscataway. Yeah,
and that's hard to say. Can you say that like 10 times fast?
No, we can also say East New Brunswick, whatever, too. So like, you know what I mean? Because it's almost the opposite. I think the Big Ten would say we're everywhere, right? We're coast to coast, and the SEC says we're cultural, we're tight.
Yeah,
it's two different messages, and I think both are good. But I'm very interested in a Big Ten culture. I'm very interested in, like, hey, Washington and Oregon, there's some things that Penn State and Rutgers and Maryland have in common with you, but maybe it's harder to do because it's so wide.
You know, I think from a football perspective, if you look at the football environments of the programs that we brought in, USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, I worked at UCLA for 5 years. I know what it's a harder equation, and the Rose Bowl is separated from campus, 26 miles. But if you take Oregon's football environment and literally the stadium, Husky Stadium at Washington, it shakes. It gets loud. So I think from a football environment standpoint and the emphasis on football, I think is very similar, and they fit from that cultural standpoint. Geography-wise, though, it's different, right? Oregon, when we play at Oregon, that's going to be a raucous atmosphere. That's going to feel like a Big Ten atmosphere. There's no question about it. So I think from that perspective, there's some similarities. Look, tailgating can be different and the weather can be different and those kind of things. But you sort of just, the LA market's different, right? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do. But look, when USC was rolling back in the Pete Carroll era, you didn't want to play there. You did not want to play at the Coliseum. And so I've seen that part. And do they get back to that? I guess time will tell. But those similarities, I think, are sort of built in from the football culture of the programs that we're bringing into the Big Ten.
I'm going to make everything north versus south, by the way, if you didn't realize it by now. You can do the other stuff on other shows.
The Mason-Dixon line.
I mean, like, you can draw a line. It's like I said, if you have a snow shovel, you're part of the North. Do you have a snow shovel yet?
Not yet.
You got to I'll get you one. We'll get you a logo, Kings of the North snow shovel.
You got one?
We'll get you one.
I need one.
I got to talk to our merch people.
I'm told I need one.
Yeah, so, see? Right, because you're in the North now.
That's right.
Welcome to the North. The NIL world, I think, can help the North. Now, you're worried most about Ohio State, but I think when you look at some of the Southern schools, they're always going to have an advantage when it comes to football talent and demographics and population shift and all that kind of thing. We understand that, right? But I think there are opportunities in Seattle and Minneapolis and the University of Oregon and what they have there, and Columbus and Ann Arbor and Chicago and the New York market and Washington, D.C. and all those things. I think there are opportunities in an NIL world where maybe there are some schools up here, maybe even better positioned to flourish. I think we could be approaching a world where the Big Ten competes even at a higher level than it has in the past 20 years when the SEC has dominated. Could you see that happening?
Yeah, I think in this new ecosystem, there's a lot of clarity that we need, and that's coming with the revenue share formula. And look, we don't know how exactly Title IX plays into it. There's still a lot of unknowns around it, but I think, one, it provides clarity. Two, it allows the institutions to be way more involved in the NIL space, meaning, to your point, we can start matchmaking corporations with athletes. Right now, we have to sort of let the corporations come to us and ask, hey, who are your top 25 athletes? In this future, we can actually be proactive and say, here's 100 athletes we'd love for you to consider. We can start doing that. So I to your point, I do think that sort of the corporate base, the larger cities, the larger markets. I mean, Columbus is the 13th largest market in the country. So just take us as an example. There's 30,000 companies in Columbus. There's a ton of Fortune 500 companies. So we do have a platform, and the fact that we can be more involved in it moving forward, I think does give us that advantage that you're talking about. Versus, look, I was at Ole Miss for 7 years. Oxford, Mississippi is an awesome town, but it's 30,000 people. And we're an hour away from Memphis, and we're 2.5 hours away from Jackson, and 2.5 hours away from Birmingham. Mississippi is a small state population-wise. So to your point, the economic sort of platform in the Big Ten is different. It's more robust in many ways based on the towns and the cities that programs sit in.
When we are talking about expansion, when we're talking about TV contracts, there's a lot of things where you think about it as a conference, right? You have to come to agreements. You have to think of as one mind, right? Is NIL that, or is NIL kind of everybody has to do their own thing, what's best for them? Or is it something that as a conference, the Big Ten says, this is what we want to do in NIL? Or are you just out there cutting your own deals?
Well, right now, we're all on our own. Right?
Is that good? Is that Do your own thing. You don't have to worry about what Minnesota's doing.
Look, competitive equity, legislating competitive equity has really what got us into this spot in terms of a legal risk standpoint, right? Let's have restricted earnings coaches in college athletics. Well, we got sued for that. Let's not allow athletes to be on a poster and pay them $250 or let them be in a video game. So anytime we legislate competitive equity, we kind of put ourselves at risk, right? And so the NIL world was kind of the first time where it said, you know what? If you have the resources and you have the ecosystem and you have the wherewithal to build out an NIL program, that's up to you. And your market can help that and sustain that. So I don't think NIL can be conference initiated. Now, as we look at the revenue share piece and we look at roster limits and roster caps, those are the things that I think can have uniform standards to them. But the NIL space is supposed to be market driven. The programs that have bigger ecosystems and bigger markets can be, should be, maybe to an advantage. And that's the part that may be hard for us to all get our arms around. But that's the way college athletics has got itself in trouble, is we've restricted. And now we're opening the market. And I think programs like us will continue to evolve and thrive.
So college sports for a long time had a lot of rules as it related to what athletes can and can't do.
Right.
It was a top-down ecosystem, right? And not money for them. Now it feels like the players have opportunities for money and there's no rules.
Yeah.
Can we have money and rules? Because you just said as soon as we try to legislate competitive equity, you get in trouble. But pro sports have salary caps. Pro sports have contracts that you sign and you become a free agent after several years. It's not that you can change teams 3 times in a season. Can we have money and rules in college sports, please?
We can. Okay. We can. But I think your rule making has to be around legal principles that are defendable moving forward.
Yeah.
No more, again, a restrictive environment is what put us in this spot. And so can you have structure where everybody sort of has visibility and maybe some transparency about what the rules are? Maybe, look, I'm not sure that our competitors should know exactly what we're paying the quarterback at Ohio State. I'm not sure because they're still students. There's federal privacy rights around student records and things like that. But maybe here's the aggregate number that Ohio State has, and it's the same as Luke Fickell's walking by here. It's the same as Wisconsin, right? So maybe in the aggregate we have visibility. And so I think you can put some structure around that. I do think that in the NIL world that we can have some fair market value testing, because there are companies that look at fair market value of what is your name, image, and likeness really worth, and you match that with a company, and you can say that passes a fair market value test. I do think there are structural things that we can put in place that do allow for some clarity, some uniformity. But then again, look, we have a $290 million budget, and we're competing against programs that have a $100 million budget. So there's always going to be a discrepancy, if you will. But I do think there are some uniform things that we can put in place. And we get criticized a lot of times for thinking that Congress is the right avenue to get some clarity.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at it from a legal standpoint, that's the only entity in the United States that could provide clarity around here's the law, here's the rules of engagement, here's whether or not they should be employees or not. Should there be a special carve out, if you will, a special category for student athletes on our campuses? Congress is the only, from an employment standpoint, Congress is the only entity that can do that. So that's why we're talking to Congress. That's why we're going to need them, even though we're getting some clarity from the courts. We're going to need Congress to identify and really define some of these parameters.
Would you testify? Would you go to Washington if people wanted you to go?
I've been there in private. I've been in a lot of private meetings when I was at Texas A&M. I haven't been invited to do anything publicly, but I would assume at Ohio State, because we're on a big stage, that may come at some point. I would welcome it, because I think people need to hear from practitioners and those of us on the ground that are talking to our athletes, that are talking to our coaches, talking to recruits. I was with a gymnastics recruit on campus yesterday, talking to her and her parents about this whole ecosystem. So they need to hear from us practitioners.
When you like talk to the people in Congress, maybe when it's, behind the scenes, do they know what they're talking about with this stuff, or do they just want to talk about ball and say horns down or whatever? Like sometimes they get up there and it's like back in my day.
Yeah.
Do they know what's up?
You know what? I think in this topic, because their constituents are really paying attention, because college athletics is really, really visible, especially in the SEC footprint, especially in the Big Ten footprint, they're paying attention.
Okay.
And they honestly, they want to help. They really want to help solve this, because they don't want college athletics to go away. They do not want the Olympic movement. I mean, every commissioner that's had media day, what are they touting? Here's how many Olympians we have from the Big Ten Conference. Here's how many Olympians from the ACC or the SEC. The ecosystem of the Olympic movement is funded and housed within college athletics. We can't let that go away. So the congressmen and women that I have spoken to, they're dialed in and they care and they want to help solve it.
So what's the answer there? Because I can remember I got to go to the Olympics in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But like doing a story that college football props up the United States Olympic movement.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, nobody ever asked the football players if they were cool with that.
Right.
It's like, hey, we could give you $1 million, but we really need to have a fencing team so we can win a gold medal.
Right.
So nobody ever asked them, but we've established this system.
Yeah.
It's a reality, what you just said. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
But also we're going to start paying football players. So I don't know. Like we all love the Olympics, but I don't know if that's sustainable. And maybe like the U.S. government's going to have to prop up the Olympic movement, not a college football player.
Doug, I think we might be one of the only countries where the Olympic movement is not funded sort of federally.
Yeah.
Or by the government, whatever the description is, right? Depending on what country you come from. I think we're the only ones. Now, there's some money that goes to the United States Olympic Committee, but the talent development and the talent and the coaching is all really college athletics. And there's some club models, and you have the gymnast world, right? You know, a lot of times they're younger, they're not in college yet. So there are some ecosystems that are built outside of college athletics for the Olympics, but not that many. So to me, maybe one of our approaches with Congress is to talk about what that funding mechanism is for the Olympic movement. And should we be talking to them about that piece of it as much as we're talking to them about the structure, the employment of athletes or not being employees, those kind of things? We probably need to layer in the Olympic conversation too.
That's a good conversation, because that would provide some relief.
Right.
It's like, we don't want to deny opportunities to these athletes. We don't want to kneecap the U.S. Olympic movement, but also there's only so much money to go around. Right. And if we're going to pay football players, then something's got to give. So maybe the taxpayers can step up a little bit.
And you could take it another step further and talk about the NFL, the talent development and the coaching development that happens at the college level that then fuels the NFL ecosystem. There's no funding that comes from the NFL back to college athletics.
Are you has anyone said that? Or are you the first person to say that? The NFL should chip in?
No, I haven't seen anybody say that.
You just invented that. That's awesome.
But look,
Roger,
again,
pay attention, Roger Goodell.
That's hard. We get it. We totally understand their economics, but you just look at it from a pure developmental standpoint and an ecosystem that fuels the enterprise of the NFL, it's all college football players. So
you solved it.
There's
the NFL
a lot,
has so much money, they don't know what to do with it. The Houston Texans.
Maybe I got that idea because we're sitting in an NFL stadium here.
What a brainstorm. The Houston Texans are a moribund, hopeless franchise. And Ohio State hands them C.J. Stroud and instantaneously changes their fortunes. And what's Ohio State get?
That's right. We get the pride of having C.J. there.
Which is a great thing. Yeah. It's not like that's a great thing.
Yeah. And again, that's a hard conversation. There's a lot of benefit of the relationship with the NFL. But if we're talking strictly economics and strictly talent pool and development, just like we talked on the Olympic side, if you talk about football, and then you could even go into the NBA. More college players are now playing in the NBA than ever before. Sort of the one and done is not really there anymore. They want some more mature players. So again, there's a lot of things that, given that we're sort of scraping things and reinventing and reimagining college athletics ecosystem, I think we have to put everything on the table and say, okay, what about this idea? What about this idea? and really, really contemplate how we provide the long-term stability for this entire enterprise. Because one of the things we haven't talked about yet is this is still about education. We're still earning degrees. We're still going to class. We're still developing leaders for the next generation that have their degree. There's a ton of value in education around this ecosystem. And really all we're talking about is money and rules and all these things, but we can't forget about that piece of it.
If you guys said we're paying the football players, but the NFL, each NFL team is giving $10 million to a pot that will help prop up Olympic sports at major universities, right? Because they can feel good about it and everybody gets to pat each other on the back and like that. But it's all money. Who cares what jar it comes out of? But maybe they can kick in NBA and NFL. I think that's a good idea because otherwise it's not a threat, but the Olympic movement could be dinged in the new world. Right. There could be an effect of like, hey, how come in 2036 America didn't win as many gold medals as we did 16 years ago? And it's like, well,
and you look back at this period and say, well, how many programs got dropped because of this new economic reality in college athletics? So there's a lot that we're dealing with right now to solve this. The good thing is we can solve it. We get to solve it, but there's a lot in this equation that has to be figured out.
Okay, so I'm also in favor of selling everything because I think as I make my living doing this,
everything's for sale.
Words are meaningless. What are words? So I would put patches on jerseys. I would like ads on jerseys. I would put ads on the field. I would sell the name of Ohio Stadium. I went through, no offense to the North. There's a lot of generic names in the North. If you want to name your stadium for a great historic person, Kinnick Stadium at Iowa. I'm not asking them. Ohio Stadium is just Ohio. It's just the name of the state. We know what state we're in. Sell it. How open are you? And some people will push back against it, but just call it whatever you want. Right. The name police aren't going to come around in the tailgate lot and say, hey, did you call it the wrong name of the stadium? Right. Call it the shoe. Who cares? Right. Sell it, though. Don't you have to be willing to sell stuff?
It's just what I said just a few seconds ago is you got to put everything on the table. Okay. Again, if we're reimagining this model and we're sort of scraping things to say, okay, we have to redo this. We're going to scratch it and rebuild it or break some glass and rebuild it or put the glass back together. Now's the time that we have to put everything on the table from an economic standpoint, from a commercial standpoint, a sponsorship inventory standpoint. And then you balance that. Okay, is that the right thing? Who is the right company that would be able to put their name on it, right?
Yeah.
What's the value of that? Should we do that? You go through this full analysis before you ever pull the trigger, but the analysis has to be what should be on the table, what can be on the table, what is the value of that? And so those are all the things that we'll map out early in my tenure to say, okay, is there value in doing this? And then what would be the aftermath? Because we get it. There would be some blowback. And so understanding that, making sure university leadership in athletics is aligned, making sure we're aligned with the trustees, right? All of those things have to be part of the equation, but we have to be creative in this new model. And I think everybody understands that. Everybody's understanding that it's a new model. Let's be creative. It's a new era. What does that look like? That's what you have to sit down and talk about.
Is college football the second most popular sport in America, in your mind?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
There's no question. And Commissioner Petitti, in his opening talked about the women's basketball national championship game drew more than what? The NBA, men's basketball, and it's the highest rated basketball game since like 2019. So just that one example shows the popularity of college athletics, let alone women's athletics. So I don't think there's any question that college football is right there behind the NFL. And again, that's the thing about this. What's really fascinating, Doug, as we talk through all these things, the game of football has never been more popular.
It's never been. And
so it's fascinating that we
sometimes people don't act like it because all they want to do is talk about lawsuits, but the ball is good.
The ball's great. And the players are better, the coaching's better, our stadiums are packed. I mean, we've sold the most season tickets in the last 15 years for this year. So there's a lot of excitement, but yet kind of behind the scenes, right? We got to put some fires out, and we got to get some clarity.
And no offense, you guys sold all those season tickets with like not a great non-conference. No offense, you guys know it. It's one of those things. It's not like Texas is coming in.
I know.
Michigan game. Everybody wants the Michigan game. Yeah, no, it's
Texas
gonna be awesome
is coming in next year.
This is a little dip. This is a little dip in the home schedule, but
it shows you the power.
People are still fired up,
no doubt.
What do you think the 12-team playoffs is going to be like?
I think no one can comprehend. I don't think what those home. Now we don't want to play a home game, a playoff game. We want to be in the top 4 and get a bye.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody can really comprehend the magnitude of having those games. So you just from a viewership standpoint as a fan, those games are going to be awesome. And then you're going to roll into the New Year's 6 structure that we have and the stage of those games and just the amount of visibility of those games. I think it's going to be awesome. And then you're going to have the national championship. So I just think, again, back to the popularity of the game, I think it's only going to drive the popularity. It's only going to drive attention where you have meaningful games down the stretch that are really impactful to say, boy, if they win this game, hey, they're for sure in. Those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Conference championship games. There's some debate about maybe the top 2 teams in the SEC and the Big Ten are going to automatically be in, but maybe not. So the drama around championship games for our conferences. So I just think that stretch from Thanksgiving weekend to the end of January is going to be an awesome period that we've never seen before in college athletics.
I agree with
it's
that.
Historic.
I don't think people realize it's going to be a turbo boost. I mean, people love March Madness. We're still trying to think of a name because I think we should brand it and name it. Because March Madness is cool, right? No one calls it the NCAA tournament. So,
but you got December and January.
It leaks into January. There's a whole winter wonderland is not really. So I'll get back to you.
You'll get okay. You'll come up with a name.
So last thing on this. So I think in the end, the biggest discussion in the playoffs is going to be like right at the last spots, right? Spots 9, 10, and 11 before you get to the automatic group of 5. What does the Big Ten have to do anything to make sure that its 4th team gets the proper consideration? Because the ball's going to be good in the North. The Big Ten has a lot of good football teams. I believe in the committee. I don't think the committee is perfect. I think it's the best solution. It's better than computers or voters sitting in their living room thinking like, oh, I got to vote. I think perception can matter a little bit, and the SEC is pretty good at the perception game. And in the SEC, if a team is upset, it's like, wow, it's a great thing for the team that upset the good team. In the Big Ten, if there's an upset, everybody's like, I can't believe the favorite lost.
Right.
So I think the Big Ten just has to make sure that people know how good the ball is. Does the Big Ten have to fight on that front to make sure it gets the respect it deserves?
I think lobbying in this era, I think it's hard because metrics and data can rule the day. So what I believe is non-conference scheduling and what that looks like, I think will be a key component if there's a thin margin. If you're 11-1, 12-0, you're in. But if there's a margin, then I think they're going to look at some data around who did you play. So we don't have a Power 5 non-conference opponent this year. But next year we play Texas.
Yep.
The following year we go back to Texas. The year after that it's Alabama, home and home. We have Georgia on the schedule. So I do think if there's margins that are thin, I think they're going to look at some of that data to say who they play.
Yeah.
And then who they beat. Did they beat the right teams? So I do think that. So pounding your chest or lobbying or those kind of things, I just don't think it works. I think when you get in that room, I haven't been on the committee, but I've been in some mock selection processes. You're not getting text messages from people. You're not being lobbied. It's okay. What's on the screen. Let's compare head to head. Let's compare non-conference. Let's look at efficient offense numbers, efficient defense numbers. You're going to go on to all these things that say, are they a good football team?
Yeah, or
not? And there's some data to back that up.
I don't know if Ohio State fans want to hear this, but we're appealing to the whole North. I want to root for Michigan against Texas week 2. It's real stuff.
That's right. Because that helps, strength of schedule across the whole league then, right?
It helps everybody. That's it's really, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State play a little triangle here. And
I think Wisconsin plays Alabama.
Yep. Week
year.
3, Bama and Madison. Right. It's going to be awesome. Right. Like all that really matters. Right. Iowa State's going to matter. Like all of this,
That's
Penn State, West Virginia is going to matter.
That's right.
All of this matters. Would you want to be on the committee sometime? For real?
Actually, I was actually put on the committee at Texas A&M, and then obviously I left.
Why'd you leave? You should have stayed. You'd be on the committee.
Because it's Ohio State.
It's a good job. It's a good job.
That's right.
It's a good job.
Absolutely.
Ross Bjork, you get
Thanks
the
for having
North
me on.
thing now, right? You get it?
I get it now. Now I understand.
When I start to explain
I'm
to
learning
people,
every day. I've been here 23 days on the job, so I'm learning.
You're of the North now.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
I got it.
You got it.
Okay.
You get.
Thanks for the education
You have
lesson.
the memories of the South,
That's
but
right.
you're up here now.
The North. I got
the North. All right. He's of the North. Ross Bjork from Ohio State.
Doug.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.